Oh, welcome back. Constitutional Court Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga will be the first candidate to take the stand when the Judicial Service Commission begins its interviews for the position of the country's new Chief Justice today. Now, he's one of 4 candidates to be interviewed for the position this week. The public interviews will be conducted in Sandton, north of Johannesburg. Madlanga's interview is expected to start at 10 o'clock this morning, and the other candidates are Supreme Court of Appeal President Mandi Samaya, Gauteng High Court Judge President Dustin Mlambo, and Acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. Deputy President of the Supreme Court of Appeal, Xola Pete, will preside over the proceedings. And we cross now to our reporter Hasina Gori, and she's with Advocate Dali Mpofu just to give us a sense of what is likely to unfold today. Hasina, good morning.
Good morning, Sakina. Yes, as you mentioned, quite an important day here in Sandton, Johannesburg in the north, where we're expecting to see the first candidate of those senior and high judges to be vetted by the JSC commissioners. This morning, the Chief Justice is quite a pivotal role in the country. The head over the judiciary, as well as sit at the helm of the Constitutional Court, basically being the final authority on the functioning and the management of all the courts in the country. So quite an important role that is being really interviewed for at the moment. I want to bring in the JSC's one of the commissioners, Advocate Dali Mpofu. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Let's talk to what is usually the process that's taken when it comes to electing and appointing the next Chief Justice in the country.
Well, as you correctly said, this is a very important and profound process. Not so much like the usual processes that we have become accustomed to. Of course, the format is the same. You still have the JSC, the candidate sitting there, and so on. But as you know, normally we appoint what we call pune or ordinary judges, even sometimes judge presidents and so on. But this is the big one. This is to appoint the leader of the judiciary. And therefore, the JSC saw it fit that we should have a day dedicated to each candidate so that there are no time pressures and so that the public can have a full glare of the process here. So what will happen really is that the questions will revolve around the key issues. And the key issues would be about not so much judicial skills, because after all, these are all senior judges. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been here. But of course, they are also not just leaders of the judiciary, but they are also leaders on the bench. So there will be a bit of that. Leadership skills, of course, because it's really a leadership position. And then generally suitability and the understanding of the South African setup. So those will be the kind of broad areas. But obviously the questions will drill down to the individual attributes of each candidate, testing those kinds of skills and also the criteria set up in the Constitution.
Can you talk us how we got through to these 4 nominations that we're seeing? We know that the president deviated from the norm in the nomination process. And what is the significance of that?
Well, the significance is twofold. Firstly, as you say, it takes it out of the ordinary because it's the first of its kind of a process. But secondly, the general view, which I agree with, is that the president was endeavoring to have a much more open and transparent process. And the difference was in the establishment of the so-called Pillay panel, which sifted the first group of nominees, and then the president presented to us, to the JSC, four shortlisted candidates. Now, the powers of the president to appoint remain intact, but it is important that he does so after this JSC process. And, he could have just given us 1 candidate or 2 or 3. He elected to choose 4. That was completely his prerogative. And, of these 4 persons, we will then, obviously, on Saturday, as you know, we will just be doing deliberations. and then we'll present him with a report of our assessment of the candidates, after which he will appoint. He is the appointing authority.
Do we know a timeline of once those recommendations and reports are sent through on Saturday? How long after would the President have to appoint the next Chief Justice into that position?
No, there's no set time frame, but of course the President does know that it's almost a year now that there hasn't been a permanent leader of the judiciary, and the judiciary is, after all, one of the three important arms of the state. The process that he elected has resulted in some delays. Probably it was a question of balancing the transparency versus, expedition. So, I would personally not expect it to take too long. But it's completely in the President's hand.
As you said, this is the leader of the judiciary that we are looking to appoint. And what are some of the qualities that the JSC commissioners will look for when vetting these senior judges for that position?
Well, as I say, the work is made easier by the fact that these are already quite established jurists. Their work speaks for itself. They have had to fill in a questionnaire like everybody else, and they've had to attach some of their judgments. They've had to attach their curricula vitae. So questions will be around their personal achievements, but the broader questions will be about the criteria that I've just mentioned, trying to probe further into the wealth of experience. I think at least three of these candidates have had serious leadership positions in the judiciary at different levels, and two of them already sit in the Constitutional Court. One is a judge president, the other one is a president of the SCA. So you're talking about accomplished jurists who, by all measures, would qualify at face value for the job, and therefore hopefully that will make the job easy. But you never know. That's exactly why we're here, to make sure that all those good things are indeed so. But more importantly for me, it is the fact that this is a public process. Public in two senses. Public in the sense that it is going to be live and everyone will have to watch it. But also public in the sense that you have public representatives here. The founders of our Constitution saw it fit to design a structure like this, which has members of parliament who represent not just the ruling party, but proportionally other smaller parties, to have officials of government. The minister sits here, a representative of judge presidents, to have representatives of some civil society organizations such as the attorneys profession and the bar. Academics are represented. Some might argue that it's not sufficiently representative. For example, there's no representative of trade unions and so on. But I think it's a good start. Maybe if there's ever an amendment of the Constitution, we'll try and make it more representative. So it's also public in that particular sense. Yeah.
Before I let you go, I know there is a closed meeting before the actual interview starts at 10 a.m. One last question. In the last month, we've seen some sentiments from Minister Sisulu, specifically an opinion piece she penned where she called out some of the top African judges, saying that they were mentally colonized. What's your view on those sentiments going into this process where the commissioners will be electing that next leader of the judiciary? What's your view on that?
Well, I have many views on that, but I now speak just for the Judicial Services Commission, and we have not canvassed a view for them. Maybe it's something that might arise in the meeting. We are going to have a meeting, as you correctly point out, first before the first interview, as we normally do, and that issue may or may not crop up. And if it does, then obviously as the spokespersons of the JSC, we will communicate duly.
Thank you so much. That was Advocate Dali Mpofu speaking to us here ahead of that JSC interview process that is expected to begin at 10 a.m. with Judge Mahlangu taking the seat for the first interview set down for today. For the next 4 days, there's going to be 4 top jurors being interviewed, grilled, not just on their judicial knowledge, but also, as Advocate Mpofu mentioned to us, their leadership qualities. All senior jurists of the country, all highly qualified for that position of Chief Justice. And we will keep you updated throughout this proceedings via television as well as our digital platforms. So that's it for me for now. Back to you in studio, Sakina.